Welcome to Young Money, the advice show for millionaires in the making. It's time for some $1 Million Straight Talk with me, Tracy Bissett. My hands-on experience and formal financial education make me uniquely qualified to coach about all things money. Each week, I'm going to tell you what you need to know now at the beginning of your earning curve. Basic and advanced financial concepts made clear, healthy money habits, and the missteps to avoid, and all the stuff that you can do to set yourself up for a financially fit future. You'll hear from experts, your fellow millionaires in the making, and me. Ready to lace up and start this week's financial fitness training? Let's do it. Welcome to the Young Money Podcast. I'm really excited today. We have a very special guest and friend of mine, Anu Bidani. Welcome to the show, Anu.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Tracy.
So Anu is the founder and CEO of STEM Minds, a social enterprise that empowers youth to develop a love of learning through STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math education. Prior to starting STEM Minds, Anu worked as an executive at Scotiabank for 20 years, becoming their head of e-strategy and solutions. She is an award-winning entrepreneur who is passionate about empowering the next generation of global leaders and innovators. Anu has a bachelor's degree in computer science and an MBA from Dalhousie University. So welcome again, Anu.
I'm super excited to be here today, Tracy.
Me too. And we've been friends for about 5 or 6 years now. So I've been following the growth of STEM Minds, which has been amazing. And recently you were selected as one of the funded Canadian ventures for SheEO. And so I thought it was a great time to bring you on the show to showcase the work that you've been up to and the work that you have planned so that our Young Money listeners can learn from your experience and potentially get some inspiration as well and some ideas of what not to do if they're starting out on a side hustle or a venture. But I know as well, a lot of your advice will really resonate with those in careers too. So thanks again.
I'm super excited to share the journey.
Yeah. So I've shared your bio. I'd love if you can share in your own words what you do at STEM Minds, what a day in your life looks like, so the listeners can get a better sense of it.
Wonderful. So STEM Minds, we're all about making STEM education accessible to children across the globe. We are on a mission to nurture our next generation of young leaders through the love of STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths, because STEM is a platform from where so much learning can happen in powerful ways. So, we have a learning center in Aurora, Ontario, where we run, in-person programming. We service our public schools from there as well, where we run programs in our community schools as well. And in 2020, we got our online learning platform ready. So now we are able to offer online self-directed courses as well as virtual live classes that children can attend. We service kids from the ages of 4 to 18. That's kind of where our sweet spot is. So launched the business in 2016, and I'm super excited that we're at a stage right now servicing not only our local community in York region, but now we're servicing clients, all over Canada, US, and in other countries as well. So it's been a fascinating journey of, growing STEM Minds from an idea to where it is today.
Excellent. And I know certainly with COVID, you've had to do lots of pivoting. And so working from home while raising a family is lots of new things came at you during the last year. I know that you've been extremely successful to date. And so when you think back about your background and you think about all the success you've achieved so far, are there any themes or key success factors that have repeatedly shown up for you that you think have contributed to that success?
Absolutely. I mean, being an entrepreneur is a journey on its own, right? So the journey goes through its highs and lows, ups and downs. There are moments where, you make critical decisions that gets you to where you are. So for me, STEM Minds definitely has been a journey that I've embraced. So I think my one big thing I will say is, embrace the journey if you're going to take an idea and launch it into a business, because, the idea you start with may not be the idea how it will look like, 2 to 3 years from now. That definitely has been with STEM Minds, where I started out of a co-working space, small idea, 2 programs, to now, having a 3,500 square feet facility and building programming and then online platform, right? So it's a journey, and you really do have to listen to client feedback, understand the market that you're servicing to see how you're going to keep evolving your product and stay relevant. So that has been one of the areas that I felt like, we've really been on the ball, keeping an eye on what's happening in market, because interestingly enough, we actually launched our pilot online learning platform pre-COVID, and no one was ready for it. And then and the program was the perfect fit. So I think it highlights how when you're always watching the market and the trends and building your products, you will always have a leg up. So that's one thing. The second I would say is, it is about making big and bold steps. Throughout my journey, there have been moments where I've had to make a decision. Should I do A or B? And I can either make small incremental steps, or I can take big, bolder steps, which obviously carry their own risk, but they also carry that reward. Scaling my business between an online learning platform, going through the franchising route was a pivoting decision for me. And I opted to go online scale because it made more sense to me for what I wanted to achieve. So I think as any business, there will always be these moments where you have to make those choices. And I would encourage anyone, in entrepreneurship to look at big and bold steps. And the third thing I would say is, always be ready for scale. And for me, scale comes with efficiency and automation in your processes. So in my business from day one, I was automating tasks as they came along, so that as I made big, bold decisions and steps, and as I grew, I wasn't being drawn down with labor intensive tasks that I couldn't manage. So I invested in a fair bit of automation throughout the journey of my business. And when it came time to scale, I was so ready for it. Always preparing your business for scale is a good idea, because you never know where the opportunities will come. And, automation is a really good way, at least in my business, kind of that it made sense to eliminate tasks that didn't add value.
Excellent. And I've loved those things that you shared. And I think there's certainly a lot of takeaways as well for those who are in the career route, because it's important to embrace the journey no matter what you're doing. Important to make those big, bold steps, as you talk about, obviously in a calculated risk kind of way, not randomly, but being ready for more and being ready for scale. So it's been very exciting to watch the journey that you've been in. I can attest to, certainly from the beginning, you were setting up process and making sure everything was repeatable and automated, so that when that time came, you weren't fooling around re-engineering everything. You were ready to take those next steps. So I think all of those are great themes, and certainly success factors that anybody listening who puts into practice one or all of them, it would definitely put you in good stead. Now, when you think about your life so far, and it could be something in your personal life or in your business, if you think about what has been your biggest financial challenge or something you'd wish you'd known earlier in your life when it comes to money matters.
It's so interesting. When I launched the business, I never understood how difficult it would be to get a line of credit for your business. I've always been a good saver. I've always kind of looked at money very seriously. My husband and I both have done a good job, early on in our career saving it. So we were always prepared for it. But I'd never realized how difficult would it be to start a business and always have to be tied back to my own personal financial credit and creditworthiness to get any financial support from my business. And I struggled with that for 3 years before the business was cash flow positive and I could stand on the business's leg to grow. So, I feel like, really understanding how you're going to, especially if you're starting a business, how you're going to fund your business for the first 3 years would have been a really good insight for me before I launched it. I would say I was fortunate that I was able to use my own personal, credit worthiness to support and finance the business for early years. But if I did not have that, it would just take the best idea and never give it a platform for success. Because at the end of the day, for any business to even start off, you do need money and you need to plan for it. And you also need to be planning for it, because your first 3 years, you're not going to At least I know I didn't get a paycheck for the first 3 years. So, you really do need to think about all of these financial aspects when you start about launching a business. So this was a big wake up call for me. And I wish I had known a little bit more about it before I launched my own business. But I was agile and I learned very quickly, Tracy, and I worked through it. But it could have been a better experience.
Absolutely. And I didn't provide these points to Anu in advance. So she hasn't just said the things I'd wanted her to say, but those are absolutely observations I hear from so many entrepreneurs. And being a former commercial lender myself and risk adjudicator, I mean, I've been the one making those evaluation decisions. And Anu was in banking. So I just kind of think about it to people who have no context of banking and how much more challenging that journey might be. I am always recommending to people to even start small, get credit set up as quickly as you can so it can grow with the business. But the traditional financing sources aren't there for startups. They are there once there's that. As you talked about when your business is cash flow positive. So you've got to look for those alternate avenues in the early days.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing a really candid personal story. I think that really helps the listeners get some context and some learnings. Now, as we turn our attention to your entrepreneurship journey so far, would really love for you to share some success tips with the Young Money listeners and then some potential missteps that either you've made or you've seen made that they can avoid by hearing from you. So let's kick off with the success tips.
So from my perspective, when you're in entrepreneurship, just having a good idea is just not enough. I think the whole financial planning that goes with it is a very integral process in launching a business. So, I love spreadsheets. So I was fortunate with that. So, for me, understanding, what profit and loss is, what is cost of goods, how do you actually price a product? How do you make sure your expenses are optimized and when you're running a business? All of these things are actually really important to understand. And I'm really surprised how many people don't understand that's basic profit and loss statement and how you should review it and interpret it and how do you take actions on it. Because I've always loved spreadsheets, I've been good at that piece, and I've found that it was one of the best things that I did for myself is building that financial model very early on in my business and reviewing it regularly. I review my numbers on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis. I have key performance metrics that I measure because that's how you know how well your business is doing, what products are working, what are not working, where can you have cost savings. And today I run a highly, highly optimized business. My expenses are very optimized. I have products that work well and products that didn't work well, I abandoned them. So, financial planning and understanding your numbers and your products is all integral in really positioning your business for success. To me, so that's a very important thing. Just make sure you understand your numbers, you review those numbers, and you have an action plan for those numbers. And I'll give you a very simple example just so that people can relate to it. Mm-hmm. Early on in my business, we used to produce laser cut kits to run programs for kids where they will make projects. Kids loved the projects and it was a really hit product. And you would always get it sold out. However, when I looked at the cost for producing it, by early stages, I only looked at the cost of material that would take to produce the kit. But over time, I realized the energy, every time we would cut the kits, my energy bill would go up very, very high. It would just spike. And with the amount of wastage that we had, was just quite a bit. And it kind of hit me hard when I became B Corp certified in 2019, and we had to do this analysis on our environmental impact. And I realized that even though that product made money, the environmental impact was huge from wastage, from energy usage, and the carbon footprint was huge for that product. So we actually abandoned that product and converted into more digital products that didn't have the same carbon footprint, didn't have the same energy consumption. And at the end of the day, I was able to replace it with an equal products that made equal revenue, but really reduced my cost significantly in running that product. So it really highlights to you, like if you look at the deep dive on each of your product and where they make money and don't make money, it does help you in the long run to position your services really well.
Absolutely. And I would say too, when you factor in the labor and any disruption to other parts of the business, like that just increases the cost as well. So again, I haven't fed Anu the things I want her to say, but couldn't have said it better myself. Knowing your numbers is absolutely critical. Being able to then be agile and take action is the most important part of it. So it's not just about knowing the numbers, it's about what are they telling you and then what do you need to do next. And that's a perfect example, Anu, that you shared, and of it actually in action, how you made those changes. This message is for all of the entrepreneurs and those thinking about entrepreneurship who are listening. I would love for you to join us for the Financial Foundation to Entrepreneurial Peace training, where you will learn the keys to financial basics and money mastery. This live, free 5-day training has been specifically designed for you, for those in industries online and offline who want to proactively change the way you're handling your money matters and navigate the current environment with success. If you want to make informed, powerful money decisions in your business, you do not want to miss this important live training. We are kicking things off shortly, so register now at bizpeace.com. All of the details are in the show notes, so you can get the information there, and I can't wait to have you join us. See you soon. Anything else you've got on your list that you'd like to share for success tips?
The other thing I would say is, a lot of time when it comes to measuring your metrics and success, it can be very overwhelming and very daunting, because in every business, there are a lot of factors you take in reviewing whether you feel you're successful or not. I have, over the last few years, built a framework that has really served me well. So when I look at my monthly business metrics, I look at it financially, obviously cost, expenses, all of those things. I look at my customer metrics, and how well am I engaging with my customers? How many do I have repeat clients? How many clients, what kind of business they're doing with me? So I actually measure a lot of my customer metrics as well. I look at my marketing metrics. How well am I doing in my digital marketing, my ads, the ROI that goes with it? I also measure my own staffing, how well am I engaging my own staff and how satisfied they are, customer feedback surveys as well. So I was going to say, when you look at a business, financial is obviously one piece, but the metrics and all of these other components are equally important. And they will give you insights about your business that you would have never considered. And so I would highly encourage anyone, who is in a business right now, to make sure that you are looking at your business metrics, not just from the lens of finance, but also customer performance, feedback, and employee satisfaction as well. Because all of those things together truly contribute to the success of a business.
Absolutely. And for anybody working in a company as well, knowing those metrics for whatever department you're working in for the organization and how you contribute to them, that's going to help make people stronger employees as well. Now, I'm sure you've made some missteps over your journey. You've reacted and made changes, or you've seen some missteps over the years with the fellow entrepreneurs that are out there. What missteps would you like to share that you think the listeners can avoid, and then they can make some different ones in their businesses?
So I would say, when you're an entrepreneur, you always get excited with new ideas. I know for me, my mind is I get super excited when something new pops up in my head. I'm like, oh yes, we should go do this. And my team knows that as well. And what I have learned over the last few years is that while that excitement is really great, it can also become a big distractor to hitting your big goals. So I have now realized that when I get overly excited about doing so many things, I actually can't. I let my brain go through that, because I think I need to feel that energy and excitement. But then I always ground myself to a reality check, saying, okay, these are all the priorities we have right now. Does it make sense to do it now, or should it put on my nice to-do list and bring it up later? And it has taken me a while to get that discipline, because I would always get excited about new ideas and want to implement them right away. And then realize that every time I made that choice, something else had to fall apart. And realize that created more inefficiencies. And even for my staff, like it was like they all felt like, well, so much to do, so many hours. So now I have made a very conscious effort. When I have good ideas, I absolutely talk about them with my team. We put it on a priority list and we literally prioritize it when it's going to come up for discussion. So we don't lose the idea, but we're not acting on today. So for me, that has been is a journey of holding myself back and not trying to do everything all at the same time and really prioritizing what makes more sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I know so many entrepreneurs are guilty of that because there's so much that we want to bring to the world but we can only do capably so many things at a time, whether it be for time resource or financial resource or just our team doesn't have the capacity. So we want to make sure if we're dedicated, like you say, to focus on the priorities and deliver those to fruition and then move on to the next thing on the list.
Yep.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know one of the challenges that entrepreneurs often face as they're growing is around team. And so whether it's too slow to bring on team, whether it's keeping people on that aren't working out very well, all kinds of things around team. And I know that's kind of a minefield for so many people. You've done a great job over the years of managing your team and right sizing at different times. Would you be able to share a little bit about your experience with the team and what that's looked like and what you've done to drive that?
Yeah. So for me, team building is a very critical path for any business to be successful and growth. You can only run a business by yourself so long till your days are 24-hour long. So I think, for me, I think it's important to invest in teams. I'm a firm believer of, nurturing teams. But for me, when I started my business, I hired a lot of young graduates who were hungry to learn. And that hunger and curiosity for learning and growing really served me well because I was able to give them some great opportunities that otherwise they would have never had until later on in their careers. So for me, I'm very comfortable in, investing in youth and giving them opportunities to grow. So absolutely, that's one thing I would highly encourage. The other one is that, when you're starting out, it's very hard to have dedicated roles for every function in your business. So early stages, I had staff who could do multiple things based on a place of passion or somewhere they had an interest in so that I could be efficient in running my business. So I had, almost like my team was almost like a matrix. They were matrix structure where they could do everything, each one, but they were also organized in their own learning way. And that structure served me well because I was able to early stages work with small teams. And as revenue came in, we grew. And then we were able to have those functions more clearly aligned. And then people moved into more specific roles. So for me, this place of hiring young people, giving them cross-functional skills, and then niching it down to verticals had really worked well because I gave these young people a lot of experiences across multiple jobs and functions and roles. But also when I was ready to niche down and we hired individuals to take on certain roles, they were also able to coach them and bring them capacity. So I suddenly took them into leadership roles. So for me, that strategy really worked well. The other thing is, professional development is very key part of any employee's growth. So I always made sure professional development was part of the journey. When we hired people to come in and train them on leadership, communication, and various aspects. Because when you hire a young team, the risk you come with is that they may not have learned all of these things. And the reality is a lot of colleges, universities do not prepare students for communication and email and just basic business practices. So for me, it was worth spending the time and money doing that investment in them and giving them a good foundation because as they grew with the business, their skills will only get better. So that's kind of been the approach that I've taken. And, I still believe that it was the right approach for my business, how I did it. And I've seen a good success in the fact that I have a very stable team. Most of my staff right now have been with me since day one. And so I feel like giving them these opportunities for growth really has given them an edge, as they grow in their lives and careers as well. So that's kind of been my journey and what's really worked well for us.
Excellent. Well, that gives us a good snapshot of how you've handled that. When it comes to financial matters, who gives you inspiration or who inspires you? And it could be somebody we all know. It could be somebody that's personal in your life.
Well, the person who inspires me the most is my mom. I have watched my mom since a child really manage her household well. She was always so good in saving and planning, but at the same time, always making sure as kids we got all the things we wanted. I don't know how she did it, but she did it really well. And watching her do that, when I was growing up and, and now I have my family, what I learned her observed from her doing, I was able to bring that into my family. So, my husband and I both did the same things. We both saved early and, really made a balanced lifestyle of saving and still enjoying life to what it had to offer. So I feel like, she did an amazing job in showing us a good way that, you save every penny when you can and, attribute it towards value so that at the end of the day, you don't feel like you lost anything. You were still enjoying it, but in a more balanced manner.
Oh, that's great. And did your mom have any formal training to help her do that? Or she kind of had a natural ability and was learning on the go?
That had a natural ability. One of those things when you have to live on a shoestring, you are by default, you have to learn how to be good with what you have. Mm-hmm. And I think for her, that was that was the kind of the inspiration that she naturally was able to look at what she had and make choices that were balanced and reasonable.
Yeah, and still do it in a way that you didn't feel you were going without. You probably had a good, healthy understanding of we have an amount and we have to make it fit all these things, but not to feel like, oh my gosh, our family has no money and we can't do anything. So it sounds very positive.
Yeah, no. And I said that, and it's funny because growing up, I never ever felt like in any way that we were budgeting. Like she made it so transparent. As I said, I don't know how she did it, but she made it so transparent. Like you would never feel like you were budgeting anything. But now when I became a mom and had a family and had to kind of make those decisions myself, that's when I realized how understanding the money you have and how you use it was so important.
Excellent. And it is so important because whatever is happening in our youth, it carries through with us to our adulthood. It becomes the money story that goes along in our head. So it sounds like you had an excellent foundation to kind of set you up for your life and allow you to go on and have so much success. Now, before I let you go, would love to hear any final pieces of advice or insights that you want to leave the listeners with. It can be something new or something that you've already mentioned that you really just want to reiterate to make sure that they've heard it and are taking it in.
So I would say, I'm a big supporter of Tracy. This journey that you embarked on financial literacy and educating youth and adults both, I think is a very important part in anyone's journey, whether you're an entrepreneur or in your personal life. It's understanding financial aspects of your life or your business, I think are very critical to choices you will make and what you can do with it. Sometimes we all worry about, not having enough money for this or that, but there's always hidden savings. And it's about looking at your numbers and understanding them is very key. So even to, the listeners who sometimes may feel overwhelmed or scared numbers, I would encourage you to, keep that fear aside and invest in understanding what numbers mean for you in your business or in your personal life, because it is one thing that will allow you to take advantage of everything life has to offer. We're living in a world, unfortunately, everything costs, right? So if you understand numbers and you're able to make those choices, you can have an amazing, successful life. So I would say, keep an eye on numbers, and because there are hidden savings in there, sometimes that are not visible, but are very important. And so, so I'm a big supporter of financial literacy. And I think, Tracy, you've done a great job in raising the bar on that and continue to invest and how people understand it, right? So that would be my one key insight that I would love to leave the audience with.
Thank you, Anu. And so important. And the other thing to remember is that you don't have to do it alone. When you were talking about your journey and when you were building out your big model and your spreadsheet, you're very capable and you excelled at spreadsheets, but you weren't doing it in isolation. You were talking to people, you were asking clarifying questions to advance your knowledge so that you could be in this place where you can make choices and have freedom and flexibility. And that all comes with learning. So if we're committed to our learning, then we can certainly do it. Now, I know you guys have so much on the go all the time at STEM Minds. What are you working on now, and where can our listeners go to learn more about you and about STEM Minds?
So as I said, earlier in the discussion, Tracy, that we are right now our online learning platform, STEAM Hub, which has self-directed courses, is something we're launching globally in all Canada-wide, US, in Asia and other markets as well. So super excited about growing that product into new markets and getting kids excited about STEM learning in very new ways. We've already got 25 courses operating today. By August, we'll have up to 45. And by end of next year, my hope is we'll have over 100 courses for kids between the ages of 8 to 14 to go up there and build skills on many things. So I'm super excited about that. And that's kind of where my goal right now is. And the audience can absolutely go to our website and see all the offerings we have, which are virtual live classes as well that support a lot of the STEM learning opportunities for kids.
Excellent. And we'll put all of your links, your website, all your social links in the show notes. Great organization to follow. You get lots of tips no matter what age you are. So I find it very informative, which is great. Thank you so much, Anu, for joining us today. I know that I am taking away so many key points, very much those key success factors that you talked about embracing the journey, making those big and bold steps, and always be ready for the growth and the scale. I think that no matter where we are in our journeys right now, all of those definitely make sense. I love the success tips that you shared about knowing our numbers and not just knowing them for the sake of it, but actually making use of them, making action plans to address any things we're happy about and we want to double down on, but also things we might want to rectify, like when you talked about the laser kits, also those KPIs that you're focused on and covering all those metrics in the business. And then you had some great tips for us in terms of not getting distracted by those shiny new objects we might see, the importance of having a strong team around us. I think it's absolutely fantastic what STEM Minds has accomplished to date, and I'm really excited to see where you go. So thank you so much, Anu, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for inviting me. It's a pleasure talking to you. And as always, you're inspiring, Tracy. So thank you. You
are welcome. So there you have it, listeners. Anu Bidani, founder and CEO of STEM Minds, and a CEO Canadian-funded venture this year. You can check out all of her details and the company's details in the show notes. Until next time, take good care and stay financially fit. Hey, thanks for tuning in. To all you millionaires in the making out there, if you love this podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts to keep your financial fitness training going. Oh, and leave us a review. And be sure to visit 2 S's, 2 T's, financialfitness.com to take your free financial fitness assessment. Find out how financially fit you really are. See you next week, millionaires to be.